Welcome, everyone, to tonight's Wednesday night live show. I am your host, John Truncali. My co-hosts for tonight are Tim, Allison, and Phillip. And joining us tonight is our guest, is our good friend, Matt Culley. Everyone knows Matt as the content creator, tobacco harm reduction advocate, and board secretary of our favorite advocacy group, CASA. Also tonight, Allison is back with her new segment, right? You got something for us? Yeah. Tell me something good, where she will be sharing some articles of random acts of kindness. And Timmy, and what do I have for Timmy? And as always, news and advocacy with our favorite. I had to add this paper tapping rocker, Timmy. But before we get to our guests and say hello to the Wednesday Night Live team, some show history. I forgot to do this in September. I had it marked and everything. Tim and I have been doing this show for the past 4 years.
What?
First show aired September 27th, 2019 on the Zamplebox family page. Timmy?
I apologize for anything I said in the last 4 years that may have offended anyone.
Don't go back and look. Don't go back and look.
I think after this, I have to call all the people in high school that I bullied too. So.
Yeah, it was a fun show because we kind of brought in everyone that was in the community to come into the show and share their stories, and we had fun on that show. And it was Brian, Tom was there. Tom, who's still a co-host when he gets an opportunity. His work schedule changed, but then we just kind of brought in people that wanted to share their vape journey stories, and we had that show. Tim, I looked at it. It used to run 5 fucking hours.
Yeah, it did. It kind of turned into a bit of a kind of like a Friday night campfire session.
Yeah, it did. Let's check and see how Tim's week is going.
It's actually been horribly average. There's been nothing exciting going on. Like I've had, I already told you guys about that. Well, I did go for 2 hours this weekend on Saturday. I did go to a veritable trunk or treat kind of event. Yeah. You know, it was, some of my good friends took the kids, but it was so packed. There must have been 2,500 people there. Wow. And it was like this little stretch of, it's a little area over here, over the hill here called Flowery Branch. And it's kind of like one of those kind of boutique-y kind of areas where, like, you know, they got like cute little cafe kind of shops and sort of like extremely overpriced clothing stores and some nice restaurants and stuff. And so they were like, yeah, come hang out with us. The kids are going to get candy. And what I liked about the place is that particular section is you can go into any one of the bars and you can get a drink or, like, you know, whatever you want really. And then you can kind of walk around out in the street. So you're not like cordoning it off in a bar. But it was packed. Wow. And it was so funny because, like, the kids were standing in this massive line to go around the whole entire little 2-block area. And like they were like handing out like the tiniest little candies. I felt bad for these kids for like waiting as long as they did to get these tiny little candies. But yeah, it was fun. We had a couple drinks. Nice. Had to go and get a craft beer and then go upstairs for a shot of Jaeger. So yeah, we turned it into an adult/child event.
I got the shivers when you said Jaeger, man.
Jaeger.
I'm used to it, man. That's what the band drinks. That's the guys in Departure. They drink Jaeger. So, you know,
I felt those shivers. Well done.
George Bush was president.
Yeah, you kind of fall in line. You get used to black licorice. So
I should have followed your good example on that one. Probably it's been 48 hours, and well, that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah.
I'm
Allie,
doing okay.
Allie, how's your week going, Allie?
Work has been insanely busy. And I also had a trunk or treat last night. So we have one at the school every year, and the band kids that are in marching band always miss out on it because they're in rehearsal. So now they do their own trunk or treat. So decorated my little Mini Cooper, put the top down, had a little Spider-Man giant, like 3-foot tall balloon hanging out over the back, spider webs, plastic spiders, which are probably everywhere in my car and are going to scare the shit out of me at some point when I find them, when I think it's a real spider. But other than that, it was really good. The kids had a great time, and my son dressed up like Deadpool. They all had like a Marvel theme kind of for the trumpet section. So that was a lot of fun.
Nice. Phillip, what did you do this week? Did you go trick-or-treating?
I did not go trick-or-treating. I almost always, over the years, Halloween has been a big ordeal for me. I'm a huge horror film fan, big makeup creator fans, Tom Savini, the old school guys, Rick Baker, American Werewolf in London, kind of, got me interested in that stuff. So I used to take liquid latex, fake blood, and do a whole just rotting corpse thing pretty much every year. I would do variations of it. I would put on a tie-dye, call myself a deadhead. Either way, I was always just proper disgusting until about 11 years ago when I reached peak disgusting. And my best friends Steve and Andrea, I went to their place that night for the Halloween party, at which time Andrea told me that I was never allowed to come near her again looking like that. I think she started crying, which sort of that's the last time I did the whole like zombie effect thing, but it was good while it lasted. Now, this Saturday I had my 30-year high school reunion.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It was fantastic.
Nice.
It was great. I didn't make it to 10. Actually, I think I was in Denver at that time, and 20. I mean, who goes to 20? So I went to 30 under duress, pressure from all my old friends from high school, and it was really wonderful to see everybody. It was.
Did you have anybody approach you that was like trying to figure out who you were? I love that moment. For some reason, I enjoy that moment where they kind of just staring at you. They trying to get that name out.
I'm a tragically popular kind of guy, John. I really am. And everybody knew exactly who I was and like, where you been? I'm like, I'm here now. No, it was a lot. It was a lot of fun. I was there. Deirdre had a great time meeting everybody. And there were, it's surprisingly so. So I'm going to stop there. It was great.
I have to share this real quick because it was brought up. Where is it? There's Allie. Allie was set up.
Yeah, I have no idea what to do with that Spider-Man now.
That's awesome. Is that the same Cooper you've had?
Put him on the picture of your house.
I got him like a year and a half ago.
Yeah. Nice.
I'm like checking out the car. Forget Spider-Man.
Matt, how's your week going, buddy? And good to have you on.
Thanks for having me again, by the way.
Absolutely.
It's very average as well. And I don't know if you caught my pity party yesterday on Facebook, but it was like my kids don't care about Halloween anymore. Yeah. They're like teenagers. They're too old and cool. I was home by myself because Vanessa was working. And I basically just put a bowl of candy out, looked on my ring to make sure no kids were like stealing it all. And that was the extent of it, man.
I saw this post on Facebook, Matt, and my heart weeps for you. It was just, I don't even know if I'm going to put this bowl of candy outside. LOL.
I'll adapt. It just crept up on me, like I think next year, now that I know, I got to start getting prepared for grandkids. Maybe I'll start really going all out for Halloween for the neighborhood, make some haunted houses or something. But my kids are just getting too old to care.
Wait till they ask to throw the Halloween party. Then you're going to be like, oh, you know what? Yeah. Dad, can we have a Halloween party at the house? And you got to say yes. You got to say yes. So
you have to say, but I felt that post. I felt that post very deeply, and I understand where your head is at. Absolutely.
Timmy, you know what time it is?
I think I do. Here it comes. Here comes that somber neural music that just sets the tone for this particular segment of the show. But let's do it. We don't want to lose the mood. Hey, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the Wednesday Night Live show. Let's see if we can call up some good names. I've seen lots of familiars here so far, so I don't expect any less. You guys need to come back every week. Tom Morowitz, how you doing, brother? Great to see you, man. Always happy to have you back here on the show. Miss Mallory Gates, I'm sorry, I felt guilty for a week now, so I looked early for your name to make sure that I didn't overlook it at all. And I think she came in early just to make sure that I saw it right at the top. So Mallory, always wonderful to have you here on the show as she's singing "Don't You Forget About Me." I saw the comment there. So let's get past the troll that is Zamplebox. Who else we got? Anthony Estrada, not Eric's brother. Everyone, I want everyone to be clear on that. He's not related to the character from Chips, the TV show, and I'm gonna guess some of you probably are a little too young to even remember that show. But that's okay. So Anthony, great to see you here. Who else we got? We got Pam Spraggins. Great to see you, Pam. How you been? Always wonderful to have you here. Who else we got? James R. We got the pirate in the house. We make sure I didn't skip any. No, I got everybody so far. James R. Good to see you, bud. Who else we got? We got Addie Tooney in the house. Ooh, I went too fast. And there, I love rolling my R's. There's Mr. Rifleman. Rifleman in the house. Good to see you, brother. How you doing? Who else we got? We got Curtis Clemens. Curtis Clemens. He's writing longer sentences now, so I think we're seeing a marked improvement. Anyway, moving along. I did get Tom. I got Addie. I got Mallory. There's me. Oh, wait, hold on. I gotta clear. I don't know. I should be like what's that? Spinal Tap. I gotta make sure I get. The land of the lost world of JJ. Good to see you, bro. Good to see you back here on the show. And wait, hold on. We got a long one in here. Hold on 1 second. And Matt, you are a legend according to this username. Rated R Lewis and holy moly. Good thing this thing moves. Oh, the Wrestle Story. Are you familiar with this person? No?
I don't know, but that beard is awesome.
I'm
jealous.
That's a winded screen. So I'm just going to call you Rated R, sir. If we can keep it right there, I'm just going to call you Rated R. Dusty Boughner in the house. There's some nepotism going on the show. Rusty in the chat. And I think that's it. I think we got everybody. We got 14 on. So
did you get Peggy? Did you say Peggy?
Did I miss Peggy?
Yeah.
Peggy.
Where's Peggy? Oh, Peggy must be on Facebook. No, that's Bob Sharp.
Hand waving. Pink hand waving.
How did I miss Peggy?
I don't know. It's okay, Tim. I forgive you, man.
I'm still getting over that beard. That beard is like rabbinical. That was amazing.
Mine is gray and old. Matt, thank you for coming back on the show for part 3. This is part 3. So we're happy that you took some time to join us today. I know you're a busy man. You're venturing in a new position over at, say the name again, because I know I'm going to get it wrong.
Medusa Distribution,
where you're working now. And the reason you're on the show is because of your Facebook post. So I when I read the post, I said, hey, I got to get Matt on. I don't want to get your thoughts.
That's why you asked. You see, you never tell me why you asked me.
No,
I like it better this way. It makes me think a little bit. So okay.
Yeah, no. We don't send questions out before the guests come on. That's bad. That's bad podcasting.
You can town hall here, buddy.
I want to talk a little bit about your recent post about celebrities like Dennis Rodman, Snoop Dogg, and Hulk Hogan likenesses being displayed on disposable vapes. And the reason I bring it up is because I thought you shared some great some great points of view on both sides of that issue. So I was hoping you could share those here with our guests today, with our viewers.
Sure. I mean, I think the waters get muddied a little bit because, you know, I'm not, this isn't like a full-throated endorsement of disposables. We all miss the old days of rebuildables and refillables and stuff like that. But the bottom line is that disposables exist, and they have helped a lot of people quit smoking. So, but lately I've seen a lot of complaints in the industry and community about some of these devices that are promoted, or they have, you know, Snoop Dogg's name on them, or Mike Tyson's name, Hulk Hogan, whatever. Now, my take is that as long as it's legit and it's not like someone just ripped them off, as long as Snoop Dogg's getting royalties, which from my understanding they are, I personally don't see an issue with it, because, you know, these guys are mostly feeding into nostalgia. Most of them are in their 50s and 60s. And while it might be kind of cringy to have Hulk Hogan on a disposable or whatever, at the same time, like, I kind of like, maybe not Hulk, but like someone like Snoop Dogg, where he's like loved by everyone throughout the world. It's, even though he's not coming out and endorsing vaping, I mean, his name's now on a vape. So in some ways it makes it a little more mainstream.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm not saying it's like super awesome, whatever. I just think that the people always lash out at something new. And, you know, I think that it's not really warranted. It's kind of a canard. It's, people are making a bigger deal out of it than necessary.
Yeah, I mean, those three individuals, other than the Hulk, I mean, the Hulk and Snoop Dogg, I guess, can go back. Hulk's early 70s, and Snoop Dogg has been pretty much relevant all the way up into 2023. I think kids still know who Hulk Hogan is, and I think kids still know who Snoop Dogg is, but nobody fucking knows who Rodman is. Nobody knows who that guy is, unless
unless you're like, you know, middle-aged or older.
So
you might be dating the Holster there a bit much. Early 70s, I don't know about that. Maybe early 80s. Maybe.
No, 78 was his first. Early 75 when he started wrestling, and I think 78 when he finally made it to the TV. I remember sitting down and watching him wrestle his first wrestling match, and he wasn't called the Hulk. It was something California something. I don't know what his name was, but yeah, I mean, they're catering to a generation that's much older. You know, I mean, that's how I
just think like it's misguided outrage, because if, you know, I'm not at all saying if you own a shop and you don't want to buy it or carry it in your shop, like, that's totally fine, whatever. It's just, there's, you know, I'll give you an example. I saw one post where everybody's ranting about it, and even the guy that started Candy King is bitching about how horrible it was for the industry. And I'm like, what? Like, I bit my fucking tongue big time on that. But everybody's liking the fact that the Candy King guy says that Dennis Rodman on a vape is bad. Like, give me a fucking break. Sorry, that's just kind of where that post came from.
I apologize for nothing. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Wow.
I mean, everyone's doing it. It would be nice to see some of them talking about tobacco harm reduction. I think all of us would love to see that, but everybody and their mother has a disposable. Why are we targeting all this anger? If it helps one more person quit smoking, then bring it on.
Yeah. That's a good point. So, I mean, I guess I would enter into that conversation. Do you think that, you know, some of us long timers that have kind of been in the advocacy space and just sort of seen things sort of spiral out of control, maybe we're trapped in this weird place where we're hypersensitive to stuff like that? Like, it's sometimes it's hard to pick the fight, right? So because you've got, you know, we're so kind of tethered to this thing, like, you know, that it's not really catered to kids, and that adults like that stuff too. Like, you know, adults like cartoons, adults like anime, adults like all kinds of things that could be perceived outside of flavors as something that's towards kids. So when you see celebrities getting their faces slapped all over it, we either have to decide to kind of be objective and be a critical thinker about that. like, you know, you say like Snoop Dogg or Hulk Hogan, those kinds of people are really more for adults in general, just because we have akin to them in some way, shape, or form. But at the same time, isn't like throwback kind of like all the rage lately too?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess my take is it's like it's just kind of a nothing burger where like I have a 17-year-old daughter. She keeps me, you know, in the loop on like what vapes kids are using. Never heard her say any of those. Okay, like there's plenty of other brands that no one's complaining about that they are using, and you know that's just a given. Obviously, we you know kids are going to get their hands on vapes. We don't want them to vape, but it's going to happen. But my point is it's just like why waste the energy if you don't like it or you don't want to carry it in your shop. Totally respect that. Do I think it's kind of cringy in some ways? Maybe, but like, is it that, you know, is this like another nail in the coffin of the vaping industry? I don't think so. If anything, the fact that you're putting more, you know, household names, you know, at least in our generations, you know, on a vape, it's somewhat of maybe another step of acceptance, you know, that you know, oh Snoop Dogg's, you know, dipping his toes into the vaping industry, maybe somebody else will or whatever. It's making it a little bit more acceptable, I think, which could be a good thing.
Yeah. Yep. Allie is up. Allie.
Okay, Matt. So as we were talking before the show, you know, you were doing videos for 10 years. Ever since the vape apocalypse, I think that your career has kind of gone down a few different, you know, paths. I think all of us have kind of had to pivot. So, you know, what about what you're doing right now do you like, and what do you miss about, you know, just being able to make videos and put out new content all the time, because there's constantly new vape stuff coming out, and it was okay to do that.
For sure. I mean, I think like I started making videos in 2014, and like there was some guys obviously like Brim Green and others that started before me, but like that 2014 to like 2017 span was like a pretty cool time for vaping as far as innovation goes and whatnot. So I definitely miss that. I'm very, as far as like me working at Medusa now, and also I'm still making videos, but videos are, you know, I used to be doing like 20 videos a month or more. Now it's like 10 or under. So that's kind of a bummer, but at the same time, even when vaping was in its heyday, I always did want to like pivot somewhat and get a job with a company that I really liked and respected. And Medusa is a company that I wanted to work for years. I mean, I first talked to them in 2019 about it, and then COVID happened and whatnot. And so I'm very happy with where I ended up, and it's awesome being able to be on that part of the industry more and kind of get an up close on like trends, product trends, being able to see the data that Medusa has, where when I was just a reviewer, I just guessed on a lot of this stuff. Yeah. So that part's been awesome. I've been a lot busier though. So you know, I'm definitely burning the candle at both ends a little bit more and busier, but I'm happy with how it ended up, and I'm excited, but obviously still concerned about the future of the vaping industry.
Yeah, like we all are. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
Phillip, you are up. Question.
Hey, Matt. Well, first of all, it's great to have you back. And I wanted to, well, first of all, I think your take on the Hulk Hogan, Snoop Dogg disposables, if we were ever, if we stop and think for a second, an endorsement from celebrities in that age bracket kind of makes a lot of sense. So, yeah, we should probably calm down and maybe focus our efforts and, in a way that's positive. But yeah, the more I think about it, the more I hope that Snoop Dogg talks Chuck Schumer into taking a more tolerant approach to nicotine vapes in the future, because it seems that there's a pretty big gap between those that advocate for the legalization of marijuana and drug reform and those who are at the same time very much opposed to regulating and a proper assortment of safer nicotine alternatives to smoking. So what I wanted to ask you is, and I did take a look at, is it Medusa? Is that correct?
Yeah.
At the site, impressive. I can see why you're excited about it. It's been a while since I've actually gawked at gear like that, but it's nice. So I guess my question to you is, when you're talking, to people in the marijuana space, in the cannabis industry, who are very pro cannabis legalization, and at the same time you're bound to meet that person who's pro cannabis legalization and maybe not anti, but doesn't necessarily care, or is, well, let's just say anti, safer alternatives to smoking, vaping, for whatever reason. And I've met more than my fair share of those people. It seems like a pretty big conflict. Tell me, in those situations, what is your reaction? Do you have any advice for those of us that want to speak intelligently on the subject to, people who are interested in advocating for drug reform, but at the same time seem to just leave vaping out of the conversation?
Yeah, I think, I've worked at Medusa for 3 months now, and a lot of the sales trips that I've taken have been meeting with dispensaries. One thing that I found interesting is that there's a lot more nicotine vapors that work at dispensaries than I would have expected.
Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, I think that it's just nicotine is on the back burner for a lot of these people because you don't see people jailed as much, right? Like, but once you start talking about, with them about prohibition and about how it's kind of a slippery slope, and hey, did you know vapes are completely banned in San Francisco? Or like, a lot of these people don't know any of this stuff. And so once you start drawing the parallels for them, it's pretty easy for them to connect the dots and to see, how this could be an issue down the road. It's just like I think, a lot of advocates have said in the past, like, I think for the drug reform folks, it's not as sexy of a topic yet because there's not people spending decades in prison over nicotine. And, there's not, we've seen a few instances of like, cops, going too hard, or, there was the one guy that was selling cigarettes in New York that was killed by getting tackled by cops. And so you can draw, parallels there. I also, I think it's a good point to bring up, what, even with menthol cigarettes getting banned, and what is happening in California now with black markets and cartels selling their own and stuff like that. So I think just drawing the parallels to what that industry and community has dealt with for decades, they usually see it. It doesn't mean they're necessarily going to stick their neck out. People kind of have like their pet projects. You get the folks that care about opioids the most. You get the folks that care about marijuana the most. But I think once you draw those parallels, they're a lot more open-minded to it, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, it does. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my favorite. I think it was a CASAB sponsored space that you did a long time ago, back when Ethan Nadelman was still director of the Drug Policy Alliance, I think. And just listening to him, talk about how, it's taken decades for people to come around to understanding how legalization and decriminalization of marijuana and these other drugs is the right path forward. And he said something along the lines of, we've got a ways to go in the the nicotine, the fight for these products, and it's going to take a while to change people's minds, but we'll get there. That was a really great conversation that you had with him. I don't know if you remember, but I think it was a Twitter space. And I think thanks, Matt.
And I think like there's baby steps to this. So like, it's not like marijuana went from like hated to loved overnight. I mean, everyone, if you talk to Ethan now, he'll tell you that the end goal was always fully recreationally legal. But in the 90s, they had to push for, medical first and bring out all the medical benefits and talk about cancer patients and stuff, even though they knew that that was just like one incremental step. That was important because obviously you wanted people to have medical access, but at the same time, like the end goal was full legalization, because that's obviously what made sense. And we were, putting people in jail for decades over weed. So, I think you got to look at it a little. I'm not saying, nicotine vaping is the exact same, is going to go down the exact same path as cannabis. Obviously, it's a little bit different, but it's not going to happen overnight. You got to take like the little wins and the little bits of acceptance from society and whatever. Like, I'll give you an example. I've noticed more and more cannabis dispensaries that are allowed, because in some states they're allowed and some states they aren't, where they're carrying some nicotine vaping stuff, which I didn't know that was a thing until I started working at Medusa. I think the fact that like you're giving more people access is always a good thing. Obviously, those are age gated 21 and over places. And so, a little bits of acceptance by different pockets of society, can add up over time. And I think, we'll see that. We're not going to wake up one day and all of a sudden everybody's going to say, hey, by the way, vaping's great. And we were totally misguided. Like, this is going to be like stepping stone shit,
Yeah. Timmy.
Well, that's that's an interesting point, because it kind of does, all that previous conversation kind of led into my question. So being that, you're a primary figurehead, I think, in advocacy, as much as all of us. I mean, you've been outspoken on it quite often. But with all of the change that's gone on with, since, and I'll just pick a time frame, say like since 2016, have you wrestled with the thought of what the trajectory will be with regards to the outcome of vaping at some point in time? I mean, obviously we can't predict when that moment will come, but if you could compare your thought process, say from like 2016, when everything started to kind of get riled up and there people were getting ruffled feathers and we were talking about flavor bans and bans in general, to today's day, 2023, 7 years later, where would you say your opinion sat in, say, 2016, 2017, 2018 as compared to now? Have you changed your opinion about what you think the final outcome will be?
I think I was right in some ways and wrong in some ways. I mean, obviously seeing like the trajectory of what products would be popular, I never would have guessed that disposable vapes would be like the bee's knees in 2023, Now, obviously, like what took us down that path is the crackdown on Juul and flavored pods, and then the pivot to disposables. But, I never would have guessed that that's where we would be right now. Yeah. As far as I did always feel like it was going to be this whack-a-mole situation where they were never going to be able to kill it. And people, gray market people, black market people, whatever the fuck you want to call them, like there would always be people a step ahead and vaping would always be accessible, which I think that that's still the case today.
Yeah.
Would I have guessed that it would be in the form it is, disposables? No. But, I think like anytime you have a product that's that popular, you're just not going to kill it. And I think FDA is silly. They probably thought it was going to be just like, trying to go after flavored cigarettes or whatever. But, the more they crack down, the more the market tends to adapt. And so I don't see, vaping going anywhere. But obviously, like, who knows what trajectory it'll take? Will it be more black market? Will it, but it seems like even though the amount of vape shops has diminished over the years, the amount of storefronts carrying vaping products, I think, is a lot larger. If you take in all the smoke shops, head shops, vape shops, multi-purpose, shops, like I said, dispensaries before, corner stores. I mean, I think that the amount of storefronts that have vaping gear has probably exploded over the last 10 years, even though we tend to kind of focus more on just the vape shop aspect of it, which obviously has been a huge bummer because that was like the lifeblood, and the mom and pop stores were helped grow vaping. So there's been good and bad, obviously, but I still kind of stand by the fact that I don't think it's going anywhere. In what form it takes, I have no idea, though.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, Matt, I hate to do this to you. Both of you and I are big baseball fans. So your thoughts on, I saw the smile. You know where I'm going. Your thoughts on the Seattle Mariners season, finishing the season third place behind the Astros, and who's going to win the World Series? Will the Rangers seal the deal tonight?
I don't think they're going to seal the deal tonight. I think Arizona's going to win. I think the Rangers will probably win it, though. As far as the Mariners go, that was a horrible roller coaster of a season where they sucked, then got hot July and August, and we're in first place, and it was like, this is going somewhere, and then they totally craps the bed in September. And it's a bummer when we were like one game behind Texas, and Texas is now in the World Series.
Texas in the World Series. Yeah, I saw all your happy posts there in June and July.
I don't suppose you could tell me if John Daniels, he was at one time the youngest, not GM, but executive manager of any club in Major League Baseball. Is he still the manager of the Texas Rangers? Not the manager on field, but
general manager? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Do you know John?
No,
I do. I do. He's married to my college girlfriend, which is great. But at the same time, I don't know if he's still managing the Rangers. I was just curious.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Allie, you're
no
up.
Diamondbacks. What do you want to? Phil had a question from.
Oh yeah. That's right. I'm sorry. You have to put up Phil's question there.
Yep, it's right there.
There it is.
Would you? I can read it for you, Matt, if you can't see. It says, Matt, do you think that this vape ban nonsense in the States is going to make vaping like the prohibition, and where do you feel this nonsense ends?
By vape ban nonsense, do you mean like on state levels or federal? Because I mean, well, that's a really open-ended question. I mean, obviously, like all these vapes are technically illegal if they haven't gone through pre-market tobacco applications. The thing about some government agencies that a lot of us have learned is that there are a lot of bark and not a lot of bite. I mean, there's other products that are technically illegal that the FDA doesn't crack down on either, that aren't vaping related. So, but I mean, I think in the near term, state bans is scarier. Obviously, what's going on in Louisiana is pretty scary. Oklahoma as well. So, do I think it's going to end? I don't. It's just like a slow bleed. Yeah. It's like every year there's like one or two states that has a bigger crackdown. But yeah, I mean, if you look at states where they have really harsh bans right now, there's still plenty of places to get flavored nicotine vapes, even California or New York. So
Massachusetts. Massachusetts is the toughest. I hear a lot of complaints from people in that area that are having a really, really hard time. And then they do find it's very, very expensive.
The fact that Massachusetts has an illicit tobacco task force, that's mind blowing to me.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's like
illegal tobacco.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't shock me to see a few more states every year crack down with really harsh taxes, or what's going on with Louisiana is basically like you have to register and show that you have a pending PMTA, I believe, or something like that. Allison, you might know better than I do on that one, but
yeah, and I know that Altria, that's something we were discussing yesterday in the AVM group, was Altria is going to be pushing this year for a PMTA registry in every state. very aggressively,
Wow.
apparently. So that's gonna, something to look out for if you have a state group. Get involved and definitely pay attention to CASA, because they always put out the call to action, and I think those are very useful. But that's something that will be an issue, because that is exactly what you're talking about, that if you have a pending PMTA, you can stay on the market, or an approval, all those amazing 23 products that no one uses, will be available. But obviously that can't sustain, a vape shop staying open. We can't sell those kinds of things. I mean, being from New York, all my friends in New York that are my age, are messaging me and saying, I'm tired of buying my disposables from the Uber guy. So, I mean, there's always going to be an option to get some illicit products, but it's insanely expensive and typically not legitimate.
Yeah, I know, like a lot of the bodegas or like smoke shops in California or something, it's like they have them in the back and you ask for them and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it's not ideal. Do I think that we're going to be going to like UK level of acceptance anytime soon? Probably not. I don't know. At some point you would think that maybe they'll put out product standards and lower the bar, but that's years away. They're always probably going to have the PMTA process, but they might all of a sudden make it easier, or something, once they realize they can't control the beast. I'm not sure.
What's funny here in Cali is you can't find them flavors in vape shops here, but I can walk into any gas station and find a disposable flavored vape.
Yeah.
Every single one.
Yeah. Smoke shops.
Right there.
I've heard that from a lot of people. It's like the smoke shops still carry them, but like the vape shops are all just having to shut their doors.
Yeah.
Well, they're not registered. Like all these new places that are popping up, at least here in South Carolina, they're not registered with the FDA. And honestly, they're better off, because they're kind of flying under the radar for now. And in South Carolina, they haven't passed the state law yet where it's 21 and up. And we follow the federal law. We're 21 and up in all of our vape shops because, we're trying to do the right thing. And we're losing a lot of business because, one, they're really not IDing at all, but two, they are still selling to 18-year-olds.
Yeah, they're doing the same thing in Montana. Like the smoke shops are still going by 18 and no one's enforcing it, because it's a federal law, but the state hasn't changed the rules. So
right.
I had no idea that was a thing. So you're saying they are still able to use the 18, or I think it was actually 19 here in Alabama prior to T21, but in South Carolina, Montana, they're not yet. Really? So you're actually self-enforcing, and then,
Absolutely. Yeah, because we're trying to do the right thing. Also, we are registered with the FDA, so we will get secret shopped and we will get a warning letter if we sell to somebody under the age of 21, even though that is not a state law. I'm sure something we could fight, but also not trying to put a bullseye on our back, since the FDA is using, enforcement discretion, which hopefully we're looking at it like, if we do the right thing and and follow the rules, that maybe will be, okay for a little bit longer, but nobody really knows.
Yeah. And that's just like what happens with onerous regulations, where like the people that followed the rules get screwed and somebody else comes and fills the vacuum.
Yep.
Even with cannabis, it's like the same way in like California and stuff, where like there's a good argument that their regulations are too strict and too expensive, and so there's still like 75% of the weed there's sold illegally in California.
Right.
Allie, you're up.
So with everything that's going on in the space, with the tax proposal once again from Dick Durbin, and then another basically duplicate one from Christian, I always destroy his last name, Christmanuth, or however you say his last name. Are you thinking that it's more, looking at the future, what is scarier, the potential for that kind of a tax to go through? You think that that's even, going to happen? Or is it like the thought of like estate bans, or what the FDA is doing potentially?
I think states are scarier, but like, who knows with this Congress, right? You'd like to think that like the House has been in disarray. It's Republican controlled. The Senate's Democratic controlled. You'd like to think that a bill like that, especially because it's like standalone right now, right? Or is he trying to push it into some?
I
The
think it was
scariest thing
introduced
with them
on
just
its own.
the scariest thing will be, I don't think that that's going to pass on its own, but the scariest thing will be them somehow sneaking that in the last hour to
something
one
else.
of these appropriations bills.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's definitely possible. I would like to think, I think people need to be like active about that and following the calls to action and stuff. I would like to think it wouldn't happen in this environment, and I'm leaning that it won't, but I'm like knocking on wood at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been kind of introduced a few times and failed, but
yeah,
I feel like you're right. They always try to sneak it into something that has absolutely nothing to do with that. And most of these people are not reading what's in these bills.
Yeah, that would be my concern, is like, because Congress is such a mess right now, and like whenever they finally can put together some kind of appropriations bill that they're already fighting over a bunch of other crap with, that, Durbin gets that snuck in. No one has the energy to fight it, because, and the Republicans just kind of will let it happen too, because they're already, pushing for something else or whatever. That's the secret sneaking that in would be my biggest concern.
To call our legislative branch a mess right now is awful kind of you.
Yeah.
Really.
I still think states are probably of the more near and present danger, but you never know.
You never know. Phillip, you're up, buddy.
I am up. As someone who's never seen, let's just get back to the celebrity disposable just for a second. I've actually never seen any of these around here. My experience has been, actually, well, I'll ask you your experience. People, for example, I guess Altria and Reynolds are part of this ridiculous rumor mill that's, correct me if I'm wrong, but are they ringing the bell about fentanyl vapes? I mean, something ridiculous like that. I mean, to me, that's the most far-fetched nonsense anyone could come up with. Is that true?
I haven't heard that Altria is pushing that.
It's RJ Reynolds. It's not.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I believe it. It's there. We've talked about that a lot in CASA, and like there's been like, a few times where we've kind of dove into like the science of whether it's possible. Could you technically vape fentanyl? It's possible at a certain temperature or whatever, I think. Like, would that ever really happen in, the normal? It's just like the people putting drugs in their, giving out drugs on Halloween. Who the hell is going to be doing that?
Yeah, the profit margins aren't exactly there. The other thing is, I think that vaping fentanyl is considered a form of harm reduction, and that the effects are much less powerful. It's a much degraded high, I suppose you could say, it's because fentanyl.
Yeah.
Right.
What they probably did is like, people have seen articles about how it's possible, just like it's possible to like vape. I think like what was it? There's harm reduction ways for like meth and smoking crack cocaine and stuff too, I think. But like, just because that's possible does not mean that there's been any reports of like widespread fentanyl in vapes. But then I think also like people kind of prey on like the big China scare, in our society, and like these things are made in China.
That's
fentanyl
how it was
comes in
shaped.
China. Comes from China too. Maybe they'll put fentanyl in vapes because they're not regulated or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, though, it's like I don't think any vape manufacturers feel like they need to put fentanyl in them to get people to buy their product, and they probably know that it would be cracked down on very quickly. So, it's like one of those things. It's like, could it happen? Could somebody potentially do it at home and pass it to somebody else or whatever? Sure, but it's it's fear mongering for sure.
The idea that Chinese disposable manufacturers are adding a little fentanyl to their exports is kind of the silliest thing that I've ever had to Yeah, to consider it. Okay, so yeah, moving on. I've not seen the Mike Tyson or the Snoop Dogg or the Hulk Hogan vapes. Which brings me to the question: people are. I think the worst anyone is going to have to tolerate is just a bunk counterfeit or the one. I guess you could say B stock or C stock disposable I ever bought thinking it was legitimate was in California when I was in Ocean Beach outside of San Diego. And it was like literally a flume pebble that had, been, the little scratch and authorized code had been authorized 3 times prior, which means to me it's kind of like a B or C stock battery. They're like, no, it doesn't, this didn't pass quality control, so we'll sell it over and over again. And it did taste like absolute shit. But I always thought it was it was awful. I always thought it was somewhat telling that it was in the great state of California, the only place where I've ever encountered this sort of problem. But have you seen a lot of that? And if so, in what form? Because Allison, you've shown me pictures over the years. I'm grateful for them, all the different counterfeit elf bars. And those are they're terrible counterfeits because it'll say strawberry banana, but instead of it being pink and yellow, it'll be the color, it'll be pink and green, which is strawberry kiwi. So they're not the world's most effective counterfeiters. But have you seen much of that? And if so, where are you seeing it? Because I've noticed that, well, at least in my case, it's been in places where they're outlawed.
Like working at Medusa, I've heard from some different, customers and clients where they'll, tell us about some counterfeit disposable they bought from some random, company or whatever. But with disposable vapes are pretty cheap to make, right? So it's just like with RDAs back in the day when people would make fakes or whatever, or clones, because it was pretty easy to clone them, just like it's pretty easy to clone an elf bar. So anything that gets popular enough is probably gonna get ripped off. Is there any fake Snoop Dogg ones? I'm not sure. I don't know, what their sales numbers are as far as if it's even popular enough. But yeah, I've definitely seen like fake elf bars. I think there's fake geek bars. I think there's been some fake Esco bars in the past. So it's definitely an issue. Obviously the one way to negate that is to, if you're a retailer, is to buy from trusted sources.
Yeah, and scan the code on the disposable.
Right.
It will bring you to and say it's legitimate. If not, it'll bring you to like a 404 error, or it'll just say this page does not exist, and then like this is not legitimate.
But obviously, like with a California smoke shop or something, like they probably don't care. It's all about price. Somebody comes to them and they're like, "Hey, I'll sell you this 10-pack of elf bars for $30." They're not asking questions,
Yeah.
And this was a grocery store where I bought the flume pebble, which leads me to the observation. I guess in a lot of ways, what I'm thinking is the worst thing that can happen to the consumer in this interesting and ever changing market is, well, they buy a counterfeit or B stock disposable that tastes god awful.
Yeah.
And I suppose that the rest of
I think they're still legitimate products. There's, these things are really cheap to get and put in. I think it's just the flavor is going to be off. I've myself have ordered disposables online because we don't carry the disposables I like, and I've ordered them before, and I noticed the seal was missing from the outside of the box, and it just tasted like straight menthol, and that is not the flavor that I purchased. So, you're not going to get the flavor that you're used to, and chances are you're probably not going to buy from there again because it's not the same as what you're used to getting someplace else for a little bit more money.
Right.
Yeah,
the worst piece.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was going to say the worst peach ice flavored disposable was still better than the very best rich tobacco Views Alto I've ever had. So that being said, we're living in a golden age. Please continue.
But yeah, I wouldn't. It's like even if the flavors are gross, I wouldn't say they're like inherently dangerous. They're probably built the exact same way.
Yeah.
And they like there's it wouldn't shock me if some of the hardware is even made in the same plant as the
right
legitimate
next to each other. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've never heard of like, people getting sick from fake disposable or whatever, but yeah, the quality of the flavor probably isn't going to be as good. Might be cheaper batteries, stuff like that.
Yeah, they're not going to last as long. Like Ali says, a lot of times it's just not even the flavor that's marked on the box. It's just so weird.
Well, because that's like a patented formula, I would have to assume. So you're going to try to do your best to get close to it, but it's nowhere near it most of the time.
Yeah, don't fuck with our mango.
That's
Damn
right.
Don't mess with our mango.
Tim, you're up, buddy.
Yeah, I saw another video today with one of those. It was like two dudes in a Chinese factory with like it reminded me of those chicken carriers, like I don't know if anybody's ever been to like a chicken farm, but like they bring the eggs in like those little trays and stuff, and it was like these guys hovering over these trays of what looked like Elf bars, like puffing each one. And I started to like, I don't know, maybe I've just become hypersensitive to like stuff that I see online anymore. I start to question everything and its legitimacy. And I found myself like, at first I was like, oh shit, here we go. Here's another video. Some 18-year-old dude working in a Chinese factory sucking on every Elf bar. And I got to think about like whether or not I got my hands on that,
That was not Elf bar. For the record, that was not Elf bar.
Well, it was one of them. It was the square.
Well, no, they look like Elf bars, but that was not the Elf bar.
Well,
yeah.
I think I've seen that video, and it's like it gets passed around and then
there was one a while back. This one I had never seen before. The one I saw was just one guy, and then this was like on an assembly line, and they kind of panned the camera around and kept going to different guys kind of all doing the same thing. But then at one point, one of the guys had like one in his hand. Like he wasn't just like hovered over the tray, just going down the line. Like he had one in his hand and he started, he was like pure vaping it, you know what I mean? And then my brain kind of went to, wait a minute, this looks a little hokey. You know what I mean? Like this feels a little staged. Why someone would want to even make a video like that is beyond me.
But I mean, look, the upside to that is like, if they trust the product enough to vape it themselves, then it's probably doesn't have fentanyl.
Well, right, that's exactly. Yeah, I'm like, well, he's vaping it. You know what I mean?
The whole thing about
he's not dropping dead on it. I mean,
that's
look,
he's got nicotine buzz. So
he's got like 200 of them in front of him. He's vaping every damn one of them. Like like if somebody's
I doubt that that's like a widespread thing, but I will say like if you're all this hardware is always going to come from China, at least for the time being. But there are some good disposables where they fill them in the U.S. with U.S. liquid. So.
Yeah. And then to the whole thing about the fentanyl and the vapes, just my opinion, I sincerely think that no one at the highest levels, they might have questioned it for a hot minute, but I'm pretty sure most of them probably have a little common sense to even consider the fact that science will tell them that it's unless it's at some extremely high wattage or something, it's non-effective. Because it always takes me back to the time when we couldn't stop the news telling us about how anthrax was going to be spread in crop dusters. You know what I mean? And it was like you had to have scientists come on television and explain to people that like the nozzles have to be able to put it out at a certain particulation. Anyway, I'm rambling on. I'm just saying, I feel like they do that intentionally to put it in the news, just to plant a seed to scare people additionally, even though they know what the reality is. And anyway, so we'll wait to see where that goes. My question does not touch on either of those subjects, but I actually wrote down a fourth question, so if I have time, I'll come back to it. But why do you think, when it comes to sort of like standing up and trying to bargain with legislators or have them look at things from a broad perspective, right? Because obviously the vaping issue really is more put on the backs of children, right? We don't want kids vaping. We don't want the kids to be destroyed, 10 years, 20 years from now, because their brains are still developing and the worms and all that other stuff. Why do you think it feels like the adult sector of the vaping industry is so voraciously ignored in the conversation by politicians and legislators. They seem to just kind of want to look past the fact that, you know, we didn't just jump on this boat because we're stupid and it looked like a cool thing to do like a kid. You know, we actually put some research behind the products that we're investing in.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously like the kids argument tugs at people's heartstrings, especially if you know, you don't know a lot, you know, put yourself in their shoes, pretend you've never smoked, never vaped, and then all you do is see the headlines of the news, you know, like it's pretty easy to get worked up about it or whatever. So kids is just like a really good, you know, in politics, it's always like a really winning argument when you can bring up the kids. But I think like there's multiple reasons. Obviously, you know, the history of nicotine and big tobacco doesn't help us at all, as far as, you know,
Right.
the whole big tobacco 2.0 argument that they like to bring up. And I think smokers have just been pretty stigmatized, you know, for the last 20, 30 years, where, you know, I think, you know, a lot of people will feel worse for someone that's like an opioid addict or, you know, addicted to something else, which is obviously warranted. It's good to have compassion for them, but they don't feel the same way about people, you know, smokers. They like act like they fall back on the, you know, you shouldn't have, it's your fault, you shouldn't have never done it, or I know somebody that quit cold turkey just fine, you can too, or whatever. There's just, the compassion's not there with smokers as much. And I think that it's society, it's the way that they've been demonized, it's the way that you know, smokers have kind of been, which you get it, you know, not letting people smoke inside, but they've kind of been pushed to the, oh, you want to smoke, you got to go around the corner in an alley to do it, basically.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of one of those out of sight, out of mind things where a lot of people didn't even realize, you know, if you tell a lot of people, hey, there's still like 14, 15% of smoke people in this country that smoke, a good portion of the population probably wouldn't even realize that or think it, because you don't see someone smoking all that often, especially in cities, you know, and places like that. It's just not as, you don't see it as much. And I don't think the compassion's there.
Yeah. With a lot of the new laws and regulations, I mean, you can't smoke within can't smoke within 25 feet of a door. Any business. Yeah.
And I guess that was sort of like the reason why I asked the question is that, you know, as much emphasis as they put on vaping, you know, and trying to over regulate it or take it away, it's like to the wayside goes smoking. It's like you never hear politicians really ever harp or talk about smoking at all. I mean, everyone knows the harms and the outcomes, and they know what's true. But it just, to me, it just seems like they put such a hyper focus on vaping in general, you know, that they don't even want to take the time to even consider the benefit of it at any point in the conversation.
I also think like, and so I live with a nurse who's in the medical profession, and I think that there's, you know, whether you're like a scientist or a doctor or a researcher, they get, I think that they've kind of just, I think that with smokers now, they've kind of just figured, let's let them die, but let's stop future generations.
Right.
I honestly think that that's deep down kind of like where it is, to where they're a little desensitized. They see people dying from smoking every day, but they look at it more as a population level, and they look at data as opposed to having empathy for individuals. And so they think, okay, well, you know, the smoking demographic is getting older and older. They're going to die off. And as long as these new generations aren't smoking, you know,
right,
that's how we're going to fix this.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you look at it from that way, like if you're just some scientist looking at all this data and not, you know, talking to smokers, not seeing people die from it, you know, up close or whatever, I can kind of get it, even though it's very, you know, it's kind of sad and not compassionate at all. So I kind of get their way of thinking, even though I think it's misguided, if that makes sense.
I agree.
All right, Matt, you ready for some fun questions?
Sure.
What was Matt's first poster as a teenager on his wall?
Ooh. Oh God, I don't remember. I think it was like a Ken Griffey Jr. poster, but I know I had that, but I'm not sure if that was my first, but that's the one I can remember.
That was the one you can remember.
Right on. I mean, it could have been like Jose Canseco or Todd Zeal or somebody, and then you'd be screwed.
Yeah.
Nice.
What one band or musician would you love to party with, dead or alive, Matt?
Party with. See, like Meat. If I said Meat,
no, not Meat. Party.
If I said Meat, it would be Nirvana because. Oh, yeah. But I'm not sure I would want to party with Kurt Cobain because I'm an ex-opioid addict myself. So, yeah, I probably didn't even put that the right way. I know you're always an addict, but anyway,
yeah, you're good.
Party with. This might sound kind of lame, but I would say Blink-182. I think that they would be fun to party with because you got Tom, who's like a total conspiracy theorist, alien nut. So I feel like I'd get in some really fun conversations with him, and they're just crazy. And I've gone to like 8 of their shows, starting in the 90s. So I think that would be fun.
Nice. All right, Matt, we've all been in this situation through our vape journey. We get approached by smokers or even uninformed outsiders. So I'm curious your process with dealing with these individuals and what have you found to be more effective when dealing with these individuals?
I mean, I think bringing up the UK is a really good point. Like, someone talked about in chat earlier. I point out the UK a lot. I think, especially with folks that are a little more left-leaning, if you bring up that, a country that has, universal healthcare promotes these products as a harm reduction tool, that definitely rings a bell. And, talking about the science, but you don't want to get too much in the weeds with folks.
Yeah.
I try not to. I also don't want to do the 95% or better or 95% safer than smoking line, because I try to get a little more nuanced than that, but you also don't want to get too far in the weeds. So, really the UK and just talking about harm reduction, because a lot of them will still bring up it's still bad for you, but then drawing parallels to other harm reduction activities they use in day-to-day life, can help as well.
Yeah, I found it was weird is here. What I've been noticing lately is a lot of people don't realize that vaping is so open in the UK. And when they do hear that, they're kind of shocked by it. Because I've had someone just recently that she works for one of those cancer things. I don't know what it's called. But when I brought it up to her, she didn't realize it. She goes, well, I'm going to have to go look into this. And I'm like, go ahead. I go, it's in hospitals. It's everywhere.
The funnest thing is when you tell a doctor that there's actually a few hospitals that have vape shops in the UK and they will not believe you. And then you show receipts and it's just so gratifying.
Especially oncologists. They lose their minds and then they see actual pictures. They're like, no, still doesn't believe it.
Yeah. We are at a time of the show where Allie is going to do her segment, and I'm going to play this intro real quick. Something good. Tell me that you love me, yeah. Tell me something good. Song's gonna be stuck in my head for another 3 days.
So this is one of my favorite Tell Me Something Good stories. John actually said this to me, but it was something that I had already known about. And I think it's great, especially this time of the year. So a grandma and the man she accidentally texted for Thanksgiving are reuniting for the 8th year. So an accidental text message has led to a Thanksgiving tradition that is now continuing into its 8th year. Last Monday, Jamal Hinton confirmed on X that he will spend this Thanksgiving with Wanda Dench, who in 2016 thought she was texting her grandson to invite him to Thanksgiving, and she actually texted Hinton. Thanksgiving's around the corner, and I am still receiving texts from a random number. Year 8 plans are set with great surprise. The two first met in 2016 when Dench from Mesa, Arizona sent a text inviting Hinton over for dinner. It was meant for her grandson, who had changed his phone number. Instead, Hinton, who was 17 at the time, got the message while sitting in class at the Desert Vista High School. The two figured out the mistake and then sent selfies to each other. When Hinton asking if he could still come over, Dench texted, "Of course you can. That's what grandmas do. Feed everyone." Hinton has documented the holiday each year on his social media. In 2019, he shared a snap writing, "Blessed to have such wonderful people in our lives." After Dench's husband died, they still spent the holiday together. This Thanksgiving, along with all the holidays coming up, aren't going to be the same as the past ones, but I will make the best of it, Hinton wrote in 2020. Rest in peace to Lonnie and everyone else we lost this year. We will miss you greatly. Thank you for being in our lives. In 2021, an interview with azfamily.com, Dench and Hinton reflected on their friendship. "I would have missed out on this wonderful relationship," Dench said when asked what would have happened if she had not invited Hinton over years ago. "I've changed my views so much on the younger generation, and I've now reflected back on all these years. I didn't change their life. They changed mine."
That's awesome. You know, half the time you get a bad text or a wrong text, you're just like, wrong number. You know, you're kind of semi-rude, but that's awesome. That's awesome.
There's some good left in the world, people. We have to hold on to that.
Very nice.
Heck yeah. Allie, you are up. We got one more round.
Okay. So Matt, what are you most looking forward to in the future, since we've talked about all the doom and gloom here so far?
Ooh, that's a good question. Like, what are we talking about? Short term, long term?
I mean, I think like just in general in the industry, like what are you looking forward to? Like, I know everybody's so worried about the future, myself included, but is there anything that you're really looking forward to for, let's say, 2024?
I mean, I'm looking for my job. I'm very excited, and there's some cool things coming. But as far as the industry as a whole in 2024, I think that it's those baby step things. Like I said, I think that there's going to be some other, you know, positive news about vaping or whatever that's going to slowly get us into more acceptance. As far as like anything in particular, I'm not sure, but like I definitely want to go to the UK again for a vape meet because it's been years. So I'm gonna try to do that next year.
Nice.
Phillip.
You stole my question, Allison.
Dun, dun, dun.
Well, first of all, congrats.
Those are the ones I wish I had before, because I know tonight I'm going to be like getting stoned and I'm going to be like, God damn, I should have said this.
I always wait till after. I should probably think about whether or not that's a good call. Now that I think, well, congrats on your new position. And I hope that, I guess this is part of, will you still be producing the videos that you've been producing for ever? Because I'm not ashamed to say that when it comes to, you know, product know-how, it's been, you know, you and Nick that, you know, I go to just see, you know, you're a great, you're great at what you do when it comes to, you know, new products in the market, because you never come out and really say this is an absolute piece of shit, don't buy it. But I can always tell by your, just say, relative lack of enthusiasm what it is that you find worth a damn and what you don't. Is that something that you see yourself continuing to do, or are you going to have to step back from that a bit?
Hold on a second. He's done it once. I remember way back with the IPv4. Don't buy it.
I mean, I was going to say, I used to have to do that more. The problem, not problem, it's a good thing, is that even the vape products that come out now that are just like, it's still good. Like, it's
been there.
If it was the only thing I had to vape, you know, like it was better than anything I quit smoking with, you know, 10 years ago. So it's made my job a little bit easier. But yeah, you're right. Like it's, you know, I don't shit on stuff as much as I used to. I do miss like some of those total pieces of crap that were really easy to.
Well,
to
I think
bash
it was the
back in the day.
IPv4 XXX or 400, something like that. Basically, it had the dual battery fiasco where you could put them in any which way, and yeah, the sucker would start smoking. Yeah, that was when you really kind of had to call out. Yeah,
Or like the turbo RDA, people were
Turbo.
putting like fans in RDAs and stuff. Like
Yeah.
it was a little spinning, not a fan, it was a turbine that would spin.
this was a bad idea. Yes,
Yeah.
it was a very bad idea. I wish I'd seen that video because ouch, that hurt.
But
It was
just-
I mean,
the charging port location on the IPv4. Remember, Matt?
yes.
I had a
Yeah.
Clito 120 on that thing. I put new batteries in it. I set it on the counter. I went over to the stove to check on whatever I had in the oven. I heard sizzle. I'm like, preheat is still going on. We don't have enough. Like, we're not at that point where I should be hearing sizzle. I look back over to the counter. The damn tank is smoking. The mod is just, constantly firing on its own. And it was one of those things. I've only had to do it twice. I just had to take some gloves and just flick the battery door compartment and let the batteries go out. And they were both venting like crazy. I'm like, well, let's not do that again.
It's a bummer that disposables are so popular just because the refillable gear nowadays is so good. Like a mod like this probably would have sold 1 million units 5 years ago.
Yes.
Because it's really freaking good, but
Do you really like it?
yeah,
I really love to look at it.
It's gotten pretty much all good great reviews. Everybody's been.
it's fantastic. But I think it'll do well. But will it do 2016, 2017 well? No.
No.
So that's a bummer. But as far as like your question on whether I'm not or if I'm going to continue making videos, yeah, I'm going to continue making videos till YouTube kicks me off. So
Nice.
at some point that might happen. It might never happen. I might be 70 making vaping videos. We shall see.
With an IPv4. At 70.
The
We're bringing it back for a second review.
75.
I think it's safe to say we all look forward to that, the golden
This
years.
is the 35 years later opinion on the IPv4.
Well, when
finally
I'm
got it
70,
right.
you'll probably have implanted vapes. You just like press a button on your wrist, kind of pops out a little mouthpiece.
Yeah, exactly.
Timmy.
All right. So we have to ask a rather important question. We ask all the guests. So I hope you have had some time to think about this through the course of your life. But if you could talk to it, what is the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
I mean, it's one that everyone gets, but I mean, it's such a big deal that I'm still not good at it, is don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah.
It's just, everyone has heard that. Everyone knows it's true. We all know it's true, yet we still have a hard time following it, even as an adult. But I mean, the amount of time and stress we put into sweating things that really don't matter in the whole scheme of things is a huge
I agree
issue.
on that one.
Yeah.
That's always
Here,
a
here.
personal struggle.
Yeah.
All right, I have a follow-up question.
Go ahead.
I thought about this one while we were talking about it. Any reality that vaping ever falls into any kind of I don't want to call it a loophole. I feel like it's a loophole, but do you think the vaping could ever find its way into anything relevant like a farm bill? Since tobacco is technically a plant and nicotine is extracted from it, could nicotine find its way into some amalgam of a farm bill?
You never know. I mean, I don't know. I get what you're saying, like something like that.
I know. That's
Where the government never likes to admit when they're wrong, but they might just give up. Just they kind of did the same thing with vitamins in the 90s.
yeah.
And now today you still see vitamin commercials that are making all these health claims that are illegal and telling you that they're going to do all these different things, but the FDA doesn't give a shit, right?
Yeah.
And it's because they
Right.
couldn't control it. They tried and tried and tried. There was lawsuits. They finally were just like, screw it. We'll put it into a consumer product. But still, they're not supposed to make health claims, even though they do.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's there.
Right.
The problem is, the once every few months, like horror stories about the kids that get people worked up. Like if just people weren't talking about vaping, they were just doing it. It wasn't in the news for a few years. I think it would just be kind of like the FDA's little stepchild that they push in the corner, but just give up on it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. The vitamin industry, that kids would have to OD on Flintstone vitamins before they start doing something with that industry.
Yeah. And so, I mean, but like they tried with the vitamin industry. It was just too big to kill it or to regulate it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. One last question here for you. Over the last 9 years, you have seen so many vape channels come and go. Who's the one channel or person that still amazes you by their body of work?
I got to go with Grim Green because of the longevity and his passion. Like, I'm a very up and down person, and I, you know, I'm sure he is too, where like there's sometimes where he burns out more than others, but the consistency that guy has to be able to do a live show every week and to keep up his amount of advocacy for, I think it's been like, I think he started his channel in like 2008 or 2009. Yeah. So like 15 years. It's hard. It's very hard. And so, I mean, I respect the shit out of that guy for his consistency and longevity.
Yeah, it's insane how long he's been. I mean, Rip was first. All right, Rip was before Grim, correct?
No,
and then no,
he wasn't.
Grim and a British guy named I Get You 69.
Yeah, I Get You.
Scott Boughner were probably the two first vape channels that got popular. There was like, you know, a random video made like, hey guys, in 2007, I found this crazy contraption.
That's right. Yeah.
As far as like reviewers go, it was really
totally
Grim
kind of stuff. Yeah.
And I Get You 69 were the first like big ones, I would say.
Yeah. Well, we are going to do some news and advocacy. I'm not sure if you have time to still stick around, Matt. If you want to, we understand if you have to get going, but if
I can do like 15 more minutes. And
perfect.
Then I gotta go eat
Perfect.
Dinner.
Okay.
Cool. All right. Let me give Timmy his bumper.
You realize we just made Skid Row another 10 cents.
10 cents.
Yeah, I think in fact we now, by playing Skid Row at the beginning of that intro, we now will earn them more money than Spotify will pay them.
Yeah, that's probably true.
I felt pretty confident about that. As a matter of fact, there was an article out the other day that Spotify is now gonna install a policy that states that if you don't get a certain number of listens, they're gonna completely demonetize people. So wait for that one to blow up in the music world, folks. Anyway, let's talk about a little vape advocacy and news. I think I have to do the customary tap the paper. It's actually a steno notebook. So I've graduated. I've grown up. I am no longer using stacks of paper. However, there is paper and plenty of notes on the inside. So
is that cursive?
I need to get you some old Peter Jennings.
You're gosh darn right.
Yep.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, here, would you?
Is that cursive?
I don't think there's anything too detrimental to the corporation by sharing this, but no one will be able to read it anyway because no one writes cursive or reads cursive. So see.
Wow.
I write in cursive. Yep. I'm one of the lone wolves.
It's a lost art.
Yeah, back. So I think
who's Diane, and why do you have a heart next to her name?
Kissing in a tree, Philip.
Yeah.
Is
there any other way?
No. Actually, I think that was probably notes from one of my many calls that I drone on day in and day out. Yeah, so I pulled up a couple articles. I got one piece of advocacy, one that actually I pulled up early enough that we have a window to still talk about it, as opposed to the last one where I was about 18 hours behind. So let me figure out this presentation thing again. The first article we're going to talk about is this sucker right here. And we did talk on this topic a little bit on the show just simply because, obviously disposable vapes are a topic of a conversation on many different levels. But at this point, Altria is getting a little upset by the influx or just the sheer volume of disposable and illegal vapes that are coming into the country. And it's ticking them off. Well, they're a business, and I think they reserve the right to, talk about things that could be eating into their profit margin, much like big tobacco is pissed off because vaping's eating into their profit margin. But even now, they're getting into the game. There's not a whole lot of substance to this particular article. I just thought it was interesting in the sense that, there's a lot going on with a lot of larger organizations that are certainly taking notice of the illegal market. So the booming illegal disposable flavor vape market is hurting sales of Altria's authorized products, according to Altria Chief Financial Officer Sal Mancuso. Definitely, is that an Italian name?
Sure, why not?
It seemed Italian. I don't know. It's Mancuso. It's in there. I don't know. That's just all I thought. So speaking during a call with media and financial analysts, Mancuso noted that traditional cigarette sales had dropped even more than usual in the third quarter of 2023. The decline, he said, was caused by inflation and economic issues influencing customers, as well as the heightened usage of illegal flavored disposable e-cigarettes. So he went right to, and it's probably true in the sense that when we talk about vaping in the storefronts, that's pretty much all you hear people buying that kind of stuff the majority of the time. He observed that there appeared to be more switching between different categories than initially assumed, and that e-cigarettes alone were causing a 1.5% to 2.5% reduction in traditional cigarette industry volumes. Now, if those were disposables released by legitimate vape manufacturers, I would certainly be happy about any decrease in smoking overall in the general population. Unfortunate to see that bad actors are the ones that are kind of reaping the benefits from that reduction. But again, it's a bit of a win in the general sense. So we all know RJ Reynolds leads the U.S. vapor market with the largest share, so 41.8%. Per the latest Nielsen convenience store report released on October 7th. But this is where Altria is kind of pissed off, right? Because they just bought in they Enjoy, which Altria purchased for $2.75 billion with a B, not M, but with a B in June. They're mad because they're trying to increase their market share, and they're struggling with that element simply because of what they think is primarily tethered to the fact that illegal disposable vapes are not giving them the place to sell their products. So obviously they have some products out on the market that they would like to sell that are in the vapor space, but they want to fight up. They don't want to sit down. Number three, what's the saying about if you're not first, you're last, or something like that? So exactly. So with all that said, I do think that they have a right to be upset about it. Will these large, I hate to say in this case, tobacco space companies, do you think that they have enough weight to push legislation or push regulation or push enforcement, to the point where, you see a decrease of some of the illegal vapes come? I don't think that even if they had something legal on the table, the black market's still probably going to be able to defeat most of that because it'll come in under the covers inside some shipping container, buried in coffee or something like that. Who knows? Yeah. But he did have one statement. The current state of vaping market is intolerable for both legitimate manufacturers and consumers, Altria CEO Billy Gifford said during the call. The regulated market is being overrun by illegal flavored disposable e-vapor products. Man, they changed the terminology: e-vapor, e-cig. E-vapor products made and distributed by companies violating virtually every rule and guidance FDA has issued since 2016. A lot of these products are imported. They're imported illegally, and they're sold illegally. Saying a strong course correction is needed, Gifford noted that Altria has filed federal lawsuits in California against 34 organizations that include manufacturers, distributors, and online retailers.
Good luck.
So they filed a lawsuit. are these international lawsuits?
No.
Okay.
Like,
So
I mean, one of these is with a distribution, place that we purchase from, and they're going after elf bars. They're going after legitimate products, that are not approved. I mean, everything that's not made by Big Tobacco that has an approval is illegal technically.
Yeah.
And so boohoo, we're not selling as much cigarettes. So please put a stop to these safer alternatives.
But
Yeah.
the
It
funny
bears
thing is like
mentioning-
the disposable market, just like with e-liquid and everything else back in the day, it moves so fast that they're now going after disposables that have already hit their peak and are dropping.
Mhm.
Like the elf bars that are now the BC 5000s or whatever, like the sales have slowed. I think they're going after Escobar or something, which
Wow.
those have slowed because I think FDA went after them or something like that.
Yeah, they
And
put out like an import ban on the
the import ban. That's right. So it's like even Big Tobacco with their lawsuits is going to have a hard time keeping up because there's new brands popping up every day.
Yeah, they're going to rebrand. They're going to change their address that it's shipping from, and they're going to continue to fly under the radar because they're cheap to make. They're easy to rebrand. It's going to just keep coming in.
Let's I think Altria spent $13 billion on their investment in Juul, and they might have recouped maybe 5% of that selling it. I don't remember what they sold Juul for, but yeah, I guess you could say they have a lot of financial ground to make up. So
Shouldn't have
good
pulled
luck with
those
it.
Pinko pods.
I mean, like you get it because they put, they're putting millions of dollars into the PMTA process. They're not even getting a lot of their stuff authorized, like their flavored products.
Mhm.
But then there's, fly by night guys coming in. And so even if it was like, a small independent manufacturer that then had an authorized product, they'd get pissed off too, probably. But at the same time, it's just like when you ban something that's very popular and enforcement is light, like, what do you expect?
Yeah.
The other thing is it does speak volumes about the popularity and or efficacy of disposable vapes. It really does. And the other thing is, well, I really, I'm not going to sit here and say that they don't have cause to be, bitching about, disposables that, have no pending PMTA when they have spent, God knows how much, getting theirs, authorized and regulated. But at the same time, don't make up unicorn horse shit about fentanyl laced Chinese.
But the thing is, though, a lot of these companies they're going after did submit PMTAs.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can't just, it's not just, they just don't want these disposables and that's what they're pushing for.
No, you're right.
As
It's
soon
not
as
fair to group them
disposables, they get their
into-
way
yeah.
with the disposables, they'll be right after the vape shops and the open system liquid as well.
No, you're right. It's not fair to group them all into disposables that don't have a pending PM because some of them, as you pointed out, do. But let's just say that the more that these people, these tobacco companies push the federal government to take action against disposables that don't yet have an authorized product, they're being sold or what have you. I guess you could say I don't know. I have a tendency to be slightly amused by this. What pisses me off the most is the utter bullshit about fentanyl laced Chinese disposables. I guess that's what irritates me the most.
Sure. I mean, I'm not losing sleep for Big Tobacco losing market share. I mean, Altria's stock took a shit when their earnings report went up. And so they had to come out and say that. Like, but the fact that they straight up admit we're losing cigarette sales, not just vaping sales, we're losing cigarette sales because of disposable vapes. Like, that's a positive. I like that.
Good.
They finally mentioned in their, I think their quarterly reports that yes, vapor products are taking away from our overall, combustible tobacco sales. I'm like, well, there's a bit of good news now, isn't there?
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. Cheers.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Timmy.
Take your cigarettes and shove it, Altria. All right. So I picked this one specifically because I've had a bit of my own experience with
ice.
Things to not ice in particular. I'll go into more detail as I talk about the article, but so now vape shops are starting to get threatened with lawsuits for selling ice products. Why, might you ask? Is it just because people don't like ice? Is Altria mad because there's disposable vapes that have ice flavoring in it? No, as a matter of fact, there is a company called Fantasia Distribution who apparently at one point in time, I think it was a little bit earlier in the 2000s, they actually trademarked the name Ice. And so now they're pissed off because, well, I think it's greedy and I think it's low and I think it's a below the belt kind of thing. I understand the necessity to have trademarks and copyrights because obviously you don't want someone to overrun your brand. I'm surrounded by it all the time with the bands that are out now, these tributes. There's a lot of fear in those guys because it's a lot of wishy-washy language with regard to what's fair market usage or fair market usage of a likeness or a sound or whatever. I had my own experience with it in my former marriage where she was selling products and she had a name for her business that somehow strikingly was the same name as a band. She didn't even know that. I had never even heard of this band. As a matter of fact, there was another band with the exact same name, but her storefront got taken down offline because this particular band thought that they were distracting from their ability to earn income. But I won't go into the detail of that. I just think that this is it's just kind of a illusory way to go after somebody. So a company best known for selling hookah products is sending cease and desist letters to vape shops threatening to take legal action for selling products that they use the name Ice. California-based Fantasia Distribution, and I don't know why my brain went there. I was like, isn't this the same company that had the Fanta vapes? And everybody was like, all pissed, but that's not them. No, it's not. I know Fantasia. I know Vapetasia, but I've never heard of Fantasia. So I don't know what their product lines are in the hookah space. Later on in the article, they do get into where they actually do have some vapor products as well. So I guess that could result in a bit of a conflict. If you're selling a similar product or you're a similar type company and there's some kind of a copyright or an infringement there, I could see a bit of an argument. But at any rate, California-based Fantasia Distribution is also involved in 2 lawsuits charging several vape manufacturers with infringing Fantasia's trademark. This is like, to me, it's like Ice. It's like trying to trademark the birthday song or something like that.
Or water.
Who gives a rap? But it's just a descriptor. It's not.
Yeah, it's
really
a descriptor, and like they use ice and light and cigarettes and beer and whatever.
Exactly. So in multiple social media posts, vape shop owners have described receiving letters from lawyers representing Fantasia, threatening to take legal action if owners don't meet Fantasia's demands. All right, Fantasia. Some have reported phone calls with Fantasia's lawyers during which offers were made to settle any future Fantasia claims for cash payments of $5,000 or for less. That sounds like a little bit of extortion to me. But that's just me. That's just my 2 cents. Though Vaping 360 hasn't confirmed those offers. So
you take traveler's checks. Yeah, we're good.
Unrelated to its threatening letters, in 2020, Fantasia filed at least 2 lawsuits charging multiple vape manufacturers and distributors with trademark infringement. The defendants in the cases were aware of both filed in the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of New York include Access Vapor, Cool Clouds Distribution, Limitless Trading Company, Magellan Technology, Pop Vapor Company, and Romeo Vapors. Motions for summary judgment asking the court to rule on the case without a trial are due soon on the case. So it did state what year they actually trademarked. Okay, so it's 2011. They registered the trademark in 2011 strictly for hookah tobacco. Now, and this is where, for me, the space gets a little gray. It's like, okay, I get it. There are some similarities. So just to put into context, my ex-wife was making clothing for people in the music industry, fans and musicians alike. And she had the name of her company was Black Angels. And there was a band out of New York. They were called Black Angels. And so apparently they went ahead and they copyrighted the name Black Angels as a band, and then issued a cease and desist to her storefront, which was not run by us. It was run by, I don't remember if she was on Artfire or Etsy at the time, but she woke up one morning and her whole page was basically gone. And so we went to lawyers just to get an inquiry about it. And they said, well, technically, no, you guys aren't, like, they're a band and you're selling clothes, but they claimed that they sold merch. So to them, they were selling clothes. But I'm like, there's no way this woman's business is taking away from this band. So the answer was she had to change the name of the business because we didn't have the money to fight in court if we wanted to take it that far. So my guess is these cease and desist letters from Fantasia are probably a lot of smoke and mirrors. Yeah. If they're going to go after all these companies, I highly doubt that they have the money behind them to go ahead and hire lawyers to go through court cases. I mean, even some of the national bands who want to issue cease and desist to the tributes, like, there's so many tributes in this world. They, the money that it would cost them to litigate each and every case. So I think this is a little gray. They trademarked it initially for hookah tobacco, but now they want to go ahead and issue cease and desist for people that are making vaping products. While they're kind of in the same space, they're two totally different products. And to me, my personal opinion would be, well, A, I've never heard of Fantasia's hookah products, and I don't smoke hookah, so they would have never got my money in the first place. So they're not in fear of me. So, so they originally trademarked it in 2011 and registered it again in 2014 for hookah tobacco, herbal molasses, herbs for smoking, molasses tobacco, smoking molasses, shisha, vapor stones for electronic hookahs, good Lord, cartomizers, namely combination electronic cigarette refill cartridges sold empty, and atomizers sold as a component of electronic cigarettes. So that's kind of where they might have a bit of an argument to their case. But again, it is interesting because they said that in part of the article that they feel like the other companies that are using this terminology to describe their products, they're hoping that the judges could effectively rule more in their favor and say that terminology, that use of the word ice, is so diluted now at this point that it really just doesn't have the same sort of branding that I think this company probably thought that they would get out of this by calling it ice or whatever they want to call it. Because I think they're trying to promote an experience versus more of a descriptor or a flavor profile. Manufacturers since the early days of commercial e-liquid production have used terms like ice and breeze to denote products with menthol flavoring. The term became especially popular as a flavor descriptor with the 2020 commercial explosion of, once again, disposable vapes. Yeah, many of which use e-liquid that combine fruit flavors with menthol or menthol-like coolants. The resulting flavors are often described as banana ice or strawberry ice, to cite two common examples. In most cases, ice is not a part of the brand name, but a descriptive word added to the flavor name to denote the cool sensation. So the court is going to eventually, I guess, take on this case. Read this case. They're trying to get it ruled on without what would they say, without
going to court.
Without going to court. So they're hoping to probably try to collect on some of their money. I hope that these vape companies stand their ground on this one. I don't like this type of bullying. I think copyright and trademark has kind of gotten to a point now where it's sort of used as a weapon. And I don't like that. I certainly believe that if someone tries to infringe on someone's indicative right to that particular thing, and like, music or something like writing the same song and just changing the words or something, that kind of a copyright. But I just don't like this because I think people are now copywriting and trying to trademark everything now, and it just really gets to the point of being asinine. And I just think that's a little bit of a low blow move.
Like everyone in the SCVA, everybody has gotten one. And the crazy thing is that you don't have to sign for them when the letters come. They're just mailing them to every vape shop.
Oh, wow.
And so how
they're
is
trying to extort before the
it seems like
in New York. Yeah.
It's a cash grab. Yeah. I mean, how can you even prove that it has been delivered to that shop if no one has to sign? I've never ever received any kind of legal documents where I didn't have to sign for it.
Not to mention they're even sending them to places that don't produce
right. They're sending it to retail shops.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It seems like they're and so in those cases where you have a small mom and pop vape shop, like they're not gonna, they can't afford to fight it. So like that's where,
it's gonna scare them and they'll just pay it. Yeah.
Hey, pay us $5,000 and stop doing it, and we'll leave you alone. Like,
right. That's exactly how I think that I think it's kind of like the scammer. They just kind of lob stuff against the wall and see who bites, right? Because I mean, in their mind's eye, it's like somebody's going to cave and be scared, and they're just going to send us a check for $5,000.
The lawyers are like, if you get something like this, reach out to Troutman, Azim, Jared Devar, any of the vape lawyers. They are on it and they will help you. They are aware of it.
Yeah, they took a page right out of the mob's playbook right there. So that's how I look at it.
I mean, I think you certainly need to do your due diligence and at least speak with the lawyer as to like how much weight does this cease and desist actually hold.
Pay no money and do not volunteer any information about what you currently sell.
Don't just cave in. I mean, especially if you're like a retailer, I mean, it's not even your product. You're just selling somebody else's product. So you're not liable for any of that to begin with. So
I think they just Googled like vape shops in this area and they just sent out it like to everyone and the same thing. Cause people are like, I don't even manufacture anything. What do I do with this letter? And I'm like, I mean, I would reach out to a lawyer and I would respond, which we don't manufacture these products. Like, or don't even acknowledge it because technically there's no proof that you even received it.
Do you think though their play with as far as them using the religious thing having such power and as far as lobbyists in that industry, in the hookah industry, they've gotten away with a lot. When it comes to flavor bans from state to state, they've gotten away with it using that quote, this is a religious thing. You think that might help them with this sort of a case? It's like, hey, we've gotten okay from the FDA. Our product is good to be out there. We copyrighted the word ice. It belongs to us. That's the only thing I'm worried about is that maybe they have enough strength to go forward on this.
Right. Well, I think they have to. They would probably have to prove that the use of that term on other products would cause great monetary harm to their organization, because that's really what most of this comes down to is you're taking money that I could make. I am now no longer going to be able to earn because you've got this thing that's way too similar and people are going to be confused. They're going to go buy your thing and not my thing because there's a common term in between the two. I just think I think they trademarked this with the thought in their brain that somewhere down the line, someone's going to walk into the space and use that term, and they're going to be like, "Haha, gotcha! I'm gonna try to get as much as I can out of you, or at least scare you and stop you from selling your products, and then you can't make any money." So anyway, don't be a dick. That's the moral of the story.
I mean, they waited 10 years. They don't have their own big product. And it seems like diluted at this point when, there's been ice flavors that have had ice on the end of their name since since I started vaping.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying is this one kind of caught me off guard that this just now got onto the radar. I mean, they must have been doing this for a long time. I mean, they didn't just start yesterday. Somebody finally now just picked up on the article, or Jim did, thank goodness. But all right. So last one is advocacy. This one I actually got inside the window. This is another call to action, folks. So don't disappoint Matt. Go register for CASA if you haven't already. And I'm about 99.99999999999% positive everybody that watches the show is registered for CASA. But if you're the 0.00000000001% that has not, do it. Just do it.
But also add one more thing to that. Open the fucking email, people. Open the friggin' email. Don't just see it and then don't open. They know when those emails are not open, correct, Matt?
Yes, and I will be keeping track of all of you.
Every single last one of you.
He's got one of those little clickers like they do with the
emails, or you will be publicly shamed.
Right. And if you use the form letter, yes, we might actually make fun of you then too. So yes, please.
You'll
throw in a little bit of
your
own personal slant and watch the language as always. Please, let's keep it,
exactly
PG-13. Okay.
Yeah, I just imagine Matt sitting there with one of those little metal clicker things that the people have at the football game. So as each email as he gets the red receipt, he just clicks the little clicker, and then he looks
one for
down
stand, one for sit, one for genuflect, right?
Checking you off a list.
Got his smartwatch on. I didn't get any steps, but I got 32,000 clicks from emails being open. All right, so this is Ordinance 74.0. That is not a 0.0-23 or -0-23, which would ban tobacco and nicotine products in any flavor other than tobacco is moving toward final consideration. This is Evanston, Illinois, folks. So if you're in the Evanston area, they actually are going to be talking about this on Monday, November 13th. I know it's a little difficult to get to these things. I don't even know if it's open to public commentary or people can actually show up, but if you can show up and can insert your opinion, they're going to do it at 6 p.m. So it's later in the evening, not right in the middle of the day when you're at work or whatever. So if you have a chance to jet out and you can be there, it just says, so they, CASA set it up for you. Basically, you just populate the information here. I recommend you probably insert some of your own personal opinion in here. I think we've kind of commented to the fact that, when the form letters go out like this, sometimes you need to color them up a little bit because once they start looking like a bot sending them all the time, I'm sure they probably got some algorithm that probably puts them in a folder somewhere. So maybe start it out with some different language, and then you can still include the heart of the matter in there. Since I love what CASA does with this, because they basically put the relevant opinion and the details in there. So, it does help to bolster the conversation. So this is a new one. We had Pennsylvania, we got the federal one, and then now this one with Evanston. So November 13th, folks, get those calls to action in there. I don't think I need to tell you where to go. CASAA.org.
I actually made it easier for them. It's in the chat. The link will take you directly to the call of action.
There you go. And that's it. That's all I got, folks. So with 9 minutes left, back to you in the studio, John.
Timmy. Hey, Matt. Hey, thanks again for joining us. We really appreciate you coming on with us, and we always look forward to having you back on as soon as possible.
For sure. It's always a good time. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Matt.
Yeah. Thank you, Matt.
Great to see you again.
Anybody else? Timmy, got something for Maddie?
Well, no, we've had him on a few times, and I hate to sound like a sap, but we really do appreciate you being on the show. You provide a whole lot of insight to the industry, and you answer a lot of important questions for us. And then in turn, that delivers a lot of information to our audience, which so graciously gives us their time every Wednesday evening. So just wanted to express, my heartfelt thanks that, you take the time to come on a little old show like ours and voice your opinion and conversate with us. So thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it.
Hey, real quick question though. I got to ask, because I don't think we ever asked you this question, and I'm kind of curious to which flavor you're going to pick here. If you could remove one popular flavor that you dislike, I'm curious to where Matt goes with this. Which flavor would it be, Matt?
Popular flavor.
If you had to remove one popular, that's the way he phrased it to me, and I felt trapped. So,
gosh, had to remove one popular flavor. Mango ice, just because it's.
Oh my God! Matt Culley, my brother, I am with you.
Mango mixed with other fruits, but it's just been done so many times, and sometimes mangoes it's too dry. Sometimes.
Yeah. All right, I'll let you go on that one.
Honestly, my least favorite flavors are usually like tobacco related.
Thank you.
They're none of them.
Which one was it, Matt? Say that again. Which
one? I was going to say my least favorite flavors are usually like tobacco flavors, but none of those are like super popular, at least that I know of.
Allie, you want to say your goodbyes?
Yes, thank you so much, Matt. I really appreciate you coming on. I mean, I've been watching your videos since I worked in the storefront, trying to learn how to, use all the products I could then teach the customers, and now we're here. So I think it's great, and I appreciate you just giving all of these years and all of this time to the community, and we just really appreciate that, and we're really thankful that you joined us. Again.
Well, thank you. You guys are too kind.
Mr.
I did have a question. Okay, go ahead, Philip, and then if we can sneak a question in for Matt, I had another one. So,
I was going to say, cheers, Matt, and it's always a pleasure because you remind me of how long we've all been working toward a common universal good and how far we've all come, and it's great to hear your point of view and get that perspective because it really is encouraging, and I thank you for everything you do as always.
Thanks,
cheers.
Man.
Absolutely.
Timmy.
All right, so this was a question I had written down. All right, so well, no, I'm curious because Matt has reviewed a metric ton of products over the years. He's had plenty of time to develop his own opinions, and I'm sure his choices have changed over the years. So if you could pick like 1 to 3 devices, I mean, and I'm talking about don't include the e-liquid, just the device itself. So that means it has to be vapable, not just the battery itself or the tank of any kind, RDA, RTA. But if you could pick like 1 or 2 items, if that was all, if that was all that was left to the general market, name like 2 devices that you think are a surefire product that would be successful for most users, either people that vape currently or people that would be interested in looking into vape, and it can't be a disposable.
He throws that in there at the end.
I just thought of that.
I mean, I think like as far as pod systems go, I think Vaporessa is the leader right now. The Cross, the Echo Nano, but I mean, like the UL Caliburn stuff's pretty close behind as well.
Yeah.
So I mean, like as far as I'm going simple there because, like, if we only had a couple products, it'd have to be something that everybody would be comfortable using. Yep. And with the amount of pods and stuff in that Vaporesso Cross line, like I think that would be a really good universal product.
Right.
As far as I don't want to give too much love to Vaporesso because I sound like a Vaporesso fanboy.
It's hard not to. They've done some good work over the years.
They've really stepped up their game the last couple of years. Yeah, I mean, Smoke Nord's a good one too.
Yeah.
Geek Vape Zoo. Yeah, like for direct lung stuff, Geek Vape, I would say for sure.
Yeah. 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 I'm just always curious because I mean, we always preach the idea that, whatever takes you off of smoking, whatever device works for you, whatever delivery method makes the most sense and you've been successful with, stick with it. But I always wondered like what people's opinions would be about, well, if we only had a couple things that we had access to at that point. I do like the idea of a crossover pod, one where you can go MTL, DTL or a restricted DTL. Obviously you've got people that live in different spectrums, they need a different kind of satisfaction in order for it to work. I mean, we could talk about e-liquid later, how much nicotine you actually need. But yeah, because we've been around. We've done everything from the blue up through the mech mods, through all of the big lightsaber mods and everything else.
You got me thinking. You got me thinking. So real quick, we got 2 minutes, Matt.
Yeah.
Will rebuildables ever make a comeback?
No.
No, huh?
I'm sorry.
It's sad.
It's not that I say that like in a happy way.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just rebuildables were like somewhat of a necessity and they're not anymore. And well, I don't think that they're like going to go completely away and you might have like a little bit of a renaissance here and there, but will they ever be as popular as they were in like 2015, 2016? I don't think so.
Yeah.
If we have a renaissance, do you think it'll be more to the RTA side of it or the?
It'll be like a nostalgia thing, like a renaissance. Like people all of a sudden go buy the original Nintendo for nostalgia's sake, you know.
Yeah. That shop that still has the Dead Rabbit original version 1.
Which outstanding.
All over it. You got to remember, vaping is like a tech product and like a consumable, and simplicity wins, as we have seen.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you everybody in chat. Always good to see you guys there. Thank you, Allie, Phillip, and Tim. And again, thank you, Matt, for joining us. We will see everybody next week. Say goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Take care, everybody.